Hello, and welcome back to another Overwatch Database Predictions episode. This time we are going to be covering Week 1 matches for the Countdown Cup. We're going to just get right into it today. There's not a lot of news coming out recently that we haven't already covered on previous episodes, so we're going to jump right in and do our standard 5 predictions for the week as we normally do. And we're going to start things off jumping right over into the NA side of things with Dallas versus Paris. I believe this is one of the first matches of the weekend, and it provides an exciting opportunity to see both of these teams, who I think have a lot of potential in this stage and moving forward into playoffs. So I'm going to start it off with you, Connor. Who are you taking for this matchup?
For this one, I'm going with Dallas. I mean, Paris is also a great team, but Dallas has really shown their skills throughout these last few stages, and their potential is really showing. And I think it's a no-brainer that they're going to beat Paris in that.
So for me, this was actually one of the hardest matchups of the weekend to predict. I have a lot of really high hopes for Paris coming into the stage. I think that they should be able to adapt to the meta pretty well if it ends up being ball and Zen comps. I think it hinges a lot on that. But with Don being a really good ball player from like his time in contenders and stuff, we haven't seen it a lot this year, but I think Paris has a chance to come out and kind of surprise people right off the get-go. Dallas is a tall ask, so I am taking the feel in this match, but I think it's going to be much closer than people think. I would be very surprised if it doesn't go to a map 5. Like I said, I'm going to pick Dallas. I could totally see Paris winning this, though, and it wouldn't really be that surprising to me.
Yeah, I don't think that would be surprising either, honestly. It could go either way. I'm just a little bit more higher on Dallas for this.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You look at their overall season, I definitely get that, and that's kind of, I think, where I'm leaning towards, too, in predicting Dallas. Now, if I knew it was going to be a balls end comp, if I knew that was going to be the meta, I would probably pick Paris, but we don't know for sure yet. We don't know if it's going to be Orisa. We don't know. So going with Dallas as well. Sticking on the NA side of things, we have the Houston Outlaws versus the Washington Justice. This is a very interesting matchup to me, in the sense of Washington seems to kind of be on an upswing at the end of the last stage, and Houston kind of on a downswing, but I think they have the potential to rebound in stage 4, but they have a really tough schedule. So it's a big game, a really big game actually for both teams in terms of seeding for the end of the year, because we're coming up really fast on end of season playoffs. I'll kick this one off. It was another really tough one. There's a lot of good games this weekend. I had to go with Washington. I think the Justice really looked a lot better at the end of stage 3. I thought Mag has really come around as the season's gone on, and he started to really, I felt, dominate the last few weeks of that stage. And it will be a different meta, but I kind of expect that to continue. And I think Fury has been massively underperforming all year. I think he's getting it going now. And Decay and Assassin and the DPS line is also doing really well. I like some of the stuff they did with like Tuba on Brig and stuff was a little bit different, but I thought it worked okay. So I think the Justice are finally figuring it out, what they want to do. Obviously, you never know going into a new meta, but I have a lot of high hopes for both these teams, but I'm going to pick the Justice to pull off this upset in the first week.
Yeah, I can totally see where you're going with that. Houston started off strong last stage and then slowly declined. Well, actually, it wasn't even slowly. It was just like a complete
It was like
drop
a big
off.
drop off.
Yeah, exactly. And then, with Washington, they started off a little bit slow, I guess, and then they got used to I guess the current meta, and then they just kept that throughout the entire stage. I mean, I can totally see where you're going with that. But for this, I'm actually going with Houston, because if they can start off how they started off last stage, like they beat the freaking Shock. Like, what was that? It was 3-0, wasn't it? It was 3-0 against the Shock. And then everyone was super high on it, like, oh, they're going to be one of the top teams this stage, blah, blah, blah. And then it's just like complete drop off. I think they kind of got overhyped, and maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know. But if they start off as strong as they did and carry that out throughout the entire stage, I think that would be a great thing for them to have. Again, this is another one of those tough picks where two good teams, I mean, one went down, one went up, but I mean, who's to say, they can't dominate in the meta that's going to happen, So again,
Yeah.
I do think it's one of those harder picks, but I'm going to go with Houston for that one.
Yeah, I think that's 100% good thinking. I think there's no reason to think Houston won't come out looking, good, because they've kind of typically, I think, started off every stage well. And I expect them to start off looking good in this stage. I just think Washington is getting better. But I think that's a really, really fair point. My biggest concern, I think, with Houston is the whole Piggy not being able to play Sigma, because Sigma has been his best hero all year, and with it being banned, I mean, that's not to say his other heroes aren't good. I really want to see his Zarya. I hope Zarya ends up being meta a little bit, because I really want to see it. I think he can play it. I don't know for sure. I've never really seen him play it, but I'm really curious to see that.
I mean, the thing is, though, Zarya is one of his lower pick rates at about 2.5%, though. And if the Wrecking Ball and Zen comps are being run, he's not going to be able to play Wrecking Ball. He has like a 0.2% pick rate on that. So it's like his main tanks he picks are Sigma and Diva. I mean, you might be able to run a Diva into it, but who knows what else is going to be going on, you know? You don't know what top DPS are going to be.
Well, they would have Jengu or Dreamer play the ball anyway.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that sucks, though, is since he plays Sigma, and Sigma is like a main and off-tank hybrid, you're not going to get that good value you can get out of Sigma. So I think that's going to really put a lot of pressure onto him to probably bring out the Zarya, and, you know, I really want to see how that is as well. I'm really hoping it's good.
Yeah, he's going to either have to bust that out and be really good on it, or they're going to probably play a Diva comp of some kind, or so he can just play that. So our final matchup in North America for the opening weekend of the Countdown Cup is the Atlanta Reign versus the LA Gladiators. Again, like I said, a lot of good matchups this week. This was another incredibly tough one. I went back and forth on this one, I think like 3 times. I'll let you start with, though, Connor, who you're predicting.
Yeah, I was actually back and forth on this one as well when I was talking to you about it. And my main pick for this is Gladiators. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, you know, Atlanta, though, I mean, there's a really high chance that they're going to dominate. And I have that in the back of my mind. But at the same time, they might choke. The Gladiators are not a bad team whatsoever. Again, it's one of those matchups where it can go either way. 2 top teams.
Yeah.
And it's just...
So just pick the consistent team.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say,
Gladiators. I agree,
because
Atlanta... in the sense that Atlanta has choked.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was just going to say. They, like, kind of like with Houston, you know, they start off strong and then drop off. Like, every time they get to Hawaii, boom, they're just done.
They can't win.
Yeah, they can't win
a match.
Exactly.
So I think you make a really good argument, and kind of have almost persuaded me. I'm actually picking the Atlanta Reign, though, even though I've never been high on the roster. I've never been that big in them. I put them like 14th in our preseason power rankings, which was obviously ridiculous. They're a pretty good team. They're much better than that, but I also didn't intend on Pelican being so good, and I think Hawk has really impressed me this year as well on off-tank. But I'm taking them to beat the Gladiators. Yes, so I am 100% with you. The Gladiators are the more consistent team, but the Atlanta Reign have been just as consistent in the regular season. And this is a week 1 matchup. I think Atlanta has a really good chance to come out and play something, you know, have a better grasp on the meta, I guess would be a good way to put it. Whether that be Orisa. I'm not really sure how the ball would work. I don't think they would really play a lot of Wrecking Ball, but I think maybe they could come out on some kind of Orisa comp and make it work at least early in the stage until teams start to figure out a better meta and punish it maybe. But I think they could come out on Orisa and do some work and kind of catch the Gladiators unprepared. I think the Gladiators are slow sometimes to adapt to meta, so that's kind of my reasoning for leaning towards Atlanta, but it feels like a very even, you know, game on paper. And also Atlanta actually beat the Gladiators 3-2 in knockouts during the Summer Showdown. So it's really tough. I think that you can definitely go either way on it, but I'm just kind of leaning towards Atlanta for those couple, you know, small reasons. So our last 2 matchup previews are going to be from the APAC side of things. Starting off with Hangzhou Spark versus the Seoul Dynasty. This one was pretty cut and dry to me. I picked the Seoul Dynasty. I just think that with what, you know, the heroes that were banned for DPS, it kind of was a major nerf to Shy, because he is really good at Echo and he's really good at Ashe, and both of them are going to be banned. And it's not to say he can't play other heroes. He can, and he can play them well. But I think if you look at over the season so far, Echo and Ashe have been his, you know, 2 of his most dominant heroes. Specifically Ashe, I think, when he first started getting playtime, he was just dominant on it. And so I think that Hangzhou is going to struggle a little bit. I think for the Spark, not having him be able to carry so easily, I think they're going to struggle a lot this stage. I really worry about them winning more than like a game, honestly, in this stage. And I think the Seoul Dynasty, I think, you know, the same can be said about, you know, the hero ban. I think Prophet and Fitz both can play Ashe and Echo at a high level, but I think their hero pool is a little bit bigger than the DPS of the Hangzhou Spark. So I think they will be better equipped to deal with it. And also I think that Seoul has... Even though I don't think either are very great, I think they have a better coaching staff and a better overall roster. And I also think that they can play, like, Ball Zen as meta. I know we keep hammering that home, but I really believe that's what it's going to be. Then I think they can play it better than the Spark can.
Yeah, for this one, I'm actually going with Seoul as well. They do have a better roster setup, and with the current heroes that are banned, especially at least on the tank side, you don't have a lot of Sigma being played from the Dynasty. I mean, you have Jester, who plays a lot of, like, Orisa and Hog mainly, and then Marvel is a lot of Ryan, so it's like, oh, I mean, you have Ryan and Winston there, as his 2 top picks. There's not much Sigma that's being played on that team, so it's like, okay, I can see how that's going to be, perfectly fine for them. And
it's not going to affect them.
Yeah, exactly. And on the DPS side, you have Prophet, who plays a lot of Tracer, Mei, and McCree. There's no real damper on that for like Echo and Ashe. And then you have Fitz, who plays, McCree, Sombra, some Ashe in there, and Sim. And, of course, Ashe is banned, so that's going to be a little bit of a difference there. But he doesn't play her that much, so it's not going to be a really big problem for this team. So with the heroes they run and the current bans that are in place, the Dynasty's not going to have much of a problem. That's why I'm going with Dynasty. I mean, Hangzhou, sure, they have a lot of players, but that's going to be kind of messy. And, you don't know exactly what's going to happen there. Like, they are, they have, good roster size. I mean, okay, but it's a jumbled mess. So.
It is. And I think, kind of with you, like, I think the hero bans affect Seoul less than they do Hangzhou, because it's just such a nerf to Shy, and he's kind of their carry, in all honesty. So, going over to the final matchup of the weekend, we're going to predict Philadelphia Fusion versus the Shanghai Dragons. This one was pretty cut and dry. There wasn't really a lot of good APAC games to predict, in my opinion. I think the Fusion are going to be a lot better in this stage, and I think they will at least qualify for the play-in tournament to have a chance to make it to the overall playoffs. But I think Shanghai will win this pretty handedly. I think that Shanghai will continue to just play what they played in the stage 3 when they won the Summer Showdown final. They'll just play balls in. They'll play all those comps, and I think they probably, even if Philadelphia looks better, I kind of think this game will be kind of a roll. In all honesty, I think Philly at best takes a map.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I'm actually picking Shanghai for this as well. And even though Philly is a good team, with what the Dragons have been doing throughout this entire season, they've really proven themselves to be one of the top APAC teams. So it's like, with that matchup, you're going to have to pick Dragons. So there's not really much to go into here for details or anything like that.
I think the Fusion would be one of the top APAC teams if they could have had their whole roster at the beginning of the year. And they have most of it now, but they've kind of, they were starting to integrate them into the starting lineup at the end of last stage, and it just didn't look good. And I think they'll figure it out, but I just don't know if it's going to be good enough to a point where they can really contend so late in the season, having them being put in so late. So those are our 5 predictions for the weekend. Just as a reminder, going in, so far on the year, I am 15-5 on predictions, and Connor is 16-4. So hopefully I can gain some ground on him this weekend, because we did have a couple matches where we differed in opinion, with me taking Atlanta over the Gladiators and you taking LA, and then I took Houston over Washington, whereas you had the Justice. So going to be a little interesting this weekend. And so with that is our Countdown Cup Week 1 predictions. Make sure to let us know in the comments what your guys' predictions are, and if you disagree or agree with ours, make sure to like the video and hit the subscribe button for notifications. You can check this out on Apple Podcasts or our website. The link for both of those is down in the description. And as always, enjoy the games this weekend, and we will see you guys next week with our weekly recap. Thanks for watching.